So in today's video, I'm sharing 3 goals of codependency recovery for healing codependent relationships and self-esteem. Because if you know the process, you're going to recover faster. But if you're new, my name's Michelle Ferris. I'm a psychotherapist and I love helping people create relationships that work. So what is codependency? It's basically a pattern of behavior where you hyper-focus on other people that creates an unhealthy dependency on others and a lack of self-trust. So if you're codependent, you're focusing more on getting that love and validation from what you do and what you give in relationships rather than being able to give it to yourself. But in this video, I'm going to share what the recovery process looks like so that you know exactly what you need to do to make progress. So codependency recovery is about creating mutually satisfying relationships, including the one you have with yourself, without sacrificing yourself or your values for other people. It's really about creating a healthy balance between give and take, where you have the choice to say yes or no without feeling guilty. It's also a process of healing those dysfunctional behaviors that create low self-esteem and set you up for having toxic relationships. Now, if you're in codependency recovery, say me too in the comments. I'm right there with you. Now, codependency recovery is not something you can do in isolation. This is not a process that takes a few weeks or a few months. It takes several years because there's so many things involved in healing your codependency. You're talking about your relationship with yourself, other people, childhood. There's a lot that goes into that. So it's important to have realistic expectations about how long the recovery process is, because it's not a linear process. It's an up and down, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's totally normal. It's also something not all therapists and coaches are trained in. So if you're looking for a therapist, please make sure that you pick someone who has experience and training in this area. So what are the 3 goals in codependency recovery? So the first one is building self-esteem and self-trust. This is key because as codependent people, we look to other people for answers because we don't know how to trust ourselves. So this part of the work is really about building that self-esteem and starting to befriend yourself, honestly, where you begin to look at what is getting in the way of you feeling good about yourself. Where might you have to forgive yourself for doing certain things? Looking at what you actually like about yourself, because that's a part of self-esteem. And really starting to honor and trust your own perceptions, because self-trust and self-esteem go hand in hand in the recovery process. It's also about attending to your own needs and being able to give yourself that grace to make mistakes, because that's part of the recovery process. Expecting ourselves to be perfect never works because nobody is. So some goals here are to improve self-care. Take time for yourself. Sometimes when we're codependent, we don't take care of ourselves, we take care of everybody else. Also, another goal here is to focus more on yourself and what you need and want in the moment versus always hyper-focusing on what other people's needs are, because that's how we lose ourselves in our codependency. Another aspect of building self-esteem is to identify and start honoring your wants and needs. If you want to say no, if you want to take care of yourself and take a nap, that's okay. And you let yourself actually do that versus putting your needs on the back burner because you don't have time or you think they're not important. Identifying your needs is also going to help you start to set boundaries. And that's going to be critical in the next goal, which is starting to assess your relationships. What you're going to be asking yourself in your codependency recovery is, are my relationships healthy? And most likely the answer to that is no. They're probably one-sided or toxic, where you're doing all the heavy lifting, you're doing all the giving, and they're doing all the taking. And once that behavior becomes a pattern, it's really hard to stop. So in my relationship checklist, I walk you through exactly how to assess your relationships, understanding who supports you, who doesn't support you, and what your own relationship behavior is like, because those are key areas when you're assessing your relationships. We can't just look at what other people are doing. We have to look at our own behaviors too. And even acknowledging that, yes, some of your relationships are toxic or one-sided and you're getting tired of it. That's a sign of progress. And that's also going to be part of this work, is to start realizing that you may be outgrowing certain friends or certain relationships because they're no longer working for you. Some goals here might be to start doing less for other people and more for yourself. Start seeking out those people that are healthier and start a relationship with them. Because sometimes we already have healthier people in our life, but we haven't pursued those people because we're too comfortable with the toxic people. Because part of this work is to start attracting healthier people. And once you do that, you're going to start to want to set boundaries. This is a huge part of assessing your relationship because every relationship needs boundaries in order to stay healthy. And another part of your recovery is to know when to detach emotionally from what other people are doing. Because sometimes we may have people in our life that are doing toxic behavior and we don't want a part of that. Because recovery also involves you letting go of what isn't your responsibility. And that's also part of assessing our relationships. Because often we overfunction in our relationships and we don't give the other person a chance to contribute. And once we start changing that, that's when our relationships get healthier. Now, the last goal in codependency recovery is to work through childhood wounds and family of origin issues. And this is often where you're going to want a therapist who understands what codependency is. Because working through these deeper issues on your own is really challenging, and I don't want that for you. So it's really important for you to find a professional that works for you. Now, some goals here are to identify where your codependency may have started, your relationships with your caregivers, what traumas or wounds need to be worked through because they're repeating themselves in your relationships today. That's often a piece that really therapists can help you with. Another goal here is to learn how to feel your feelings, especially the difficult ones like anger and resentment. Because when we're codependent, we often bury and stuff our feelings because we think they're not okay or we assume that nobody else wants to hear about it. And really, you need to be able to feel the pain in order to move through it and get to the other side. And another goal when you're doing family of origin work is to address old beliefs that are no longer true. Sometimes our caregivers tell us things like we're being too sensitive or we're stupid instead of cultivating us and our gifts. So part of what this work is about is to address those old beliefs that no longer serve you. Now, the next step for you in terms of your codependency recovery is to go watch my video on setting boundaries because that's your next step. Thanks so much.